Welcome back to another episode of A Dose of Sass. I am very, very excited for this episode because I have my friend Gabby Male with us. She is one of the first people that I followed in my kind of self-love journey, and one that has I've stuck with for many years. There's a lot of people that I followed. I don't know about you, Gabby, at the beginning of my journey that suited me at that time that I no longer am interested in, but I feel like I've just watched you grow and been along for the journey. So I'm really excited to have her. Say hi.
Yeah, hi. I was just going to say, I feel like we've evolved together, kind of
Yeah.
going through it at the same time. And then also with the fashion stuff, we have very similar, I think, tastes and interests when it comes to
Yeah.
fashion stuff. So yeah, it's been really fun to get to know you online better, but also offline too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been really fun. To start, I have a fun question that I want to ask all my guests because I do this series on my Instagram and people love it. I also find it fascinating. But what is your current hyperfixation food or hyperfixation meal right now?
Oh, okay. So right now it's egg salad.
Oh,
Sounds so gross, but I'm pescatarian, so I don't eat a ton of meat, or I don't eat any meat. I just eat fish, and so I'm always looking for new pro ways to get protein because I never eat enough protein. And the other day I had an egg salad sandwich from a store, and I was like, oh, you know how easy this is to make. And now I'm not gonna lie though, today I think I maybe hit the I've overeaten this phase.
bummer.
So tell me yours because I'm looking for new ones.
Along the same lines as sandwiches, I'm generally in a mood of eating things that I ate as a kid to
Mhm.
back into because I've been just really disinterested in general in a lot of my meals. So I'm like, okay, what are things I used to like as a kid? And I got back into peanut butter and jelly
I
sandwiches.
was just gonna say, if you haven't had a peanut butter and jelly phase,
Yeah.
do that. And then also grilled cheese and tomato soup, great option. I that is a constant in my life.
Yeah, grilled cheese for sure. Those are my hyperfixations. I can't say that I would get on the egg salad train, but
Okay, that's okay. It's not for everyone, but if you do like it, it's one of those ones you're like, oh, I forgot that existed, and it's
totally.
really easy to make. So that's such a good little
I
question.
think that's a fun neutral one.
Yeah, I love it.
You've had quite the social media journey. I think you've done it a little longer than I have. Well, actually, it's probably a lot longer. Do you want to give a quick recap about your journey on social media?
Yeah, yeah. It's so wild. I feel like because social media is such a big and just normal thing now, it's part of everybody's lives. It's a lot of people's jobs, whether they're the person in front of the camera or they're working on social media on the back end. But I actually started my current Instagram that was specific because I had a personal page, and then I created a separate one for fitness stuff back in 2015. So
Ooh,
we're coming up on a decade, which is
wild.
wild, wild. So not to be one of those people that were like, I was doing this first, but I do feel like a semi pioneer when it comes to influencing, because literally the influencer wasn't a word when I started my account. And it wasn't a word for probably the first 3 years that I was doing my account. So yeah, it started off heavily fitness. It was only a fitness account because I was posting on my personal page, and I had gotten some messages from friends and family you should, I've seen a couple other people do this, you should create a separate page for it. It was actually my brother, that because I always credit him, he gave me my career. And yeah, he pushed me to start in a fitness account, and I was doing personal training, and that was how I got introduced into the fitness world. And it's obviously evolved heavily. And when you found me was probably when I was moving away from fitness and into self-love, and ditching diet culture and evolving my relationship with movement. So yeah, I'd say the first three and a half years was very heavily fitness stuff. And then in 2018 was when I started to transition into more recovery centered content.
Yeah, totally. When did you so you started as a personal trainer and then
Mhm.
did you stop doing that when you switched to more self-love recovery focused content?
It was a long kind of transition. It wasn't I'm stopping today. You know, it was like I still had some clients, I still had some coaching stuff, and my business has always evolved with me. I'm very blessed as an entrepreneur and was as someone with ADHD who has many interests. My business has been able to kind of shift with me. So like I always noticed my social media has just been a very authentic reflection of whatever I'm going through. So as I was starting to kind of have these epiphanies that, wait a second, my relationship with food and exercise is not serving me. I'm not in a good place. I didn't realize how unhealthy it was. And so as I started to learn and change, my business started to learn and change. So like my coaching, I was still coaching people, but it was turning into more like lifestyle coaching and helping them with their relationship with movement, and like more like health coaching, not fitness coaching, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's shifted over time.
For sure. What were some of the like red flags of your previous relationship with movement that you thought were normal at the time?
Oh my gosh, how long do we have?
I know, so many, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's so many, but I'll focus on like my personal ones because there are so many red flags. And if you're someone listening to this and you're like ears are perking up, you're like, I want to see if my relationship with movement is messed up. Make sure you maybe go on and look online, maybe look at other content, because the ones I'm about to say were just me personally, and there are more red flags out there. But personally, for me, I was very fortunate. My best friend, Mick Zazon, who, if you are not following her, you should be following her. She's another like pioneer in this kind of world. She was going through a big transition, but hers was a lot more intense. Like she was in outpatient therapy for her eating disorder, and she was going on this big like body transformation journey in the sense of like healing her relationship with her body and movement. And so that was my biggest red flag, was seeing with my own eyes what my best friend and what someone who I had very much aligned myself with had just left, and realizing like she just left this and she's talking about how much better she's feeling and how messed up this world of diet culture is. And so I was able to kind of follow in her footsteps. But the biggest red flags obviously are the amount of space it takes up in your brain. Like for me, that is the biggest one, is if you are spending all day thinking about food, thinking about exercise, and thinking about your body, that's not normal. I thought that was normal. It's not.
It's unfortunate because like it's so common, but it's not normal. Like we all have done it because of the society that we live in. Like, of course, we're thinking about our bodies. Of course, we're thinking about what we're eating, what we look like, all that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do that.
No, you don't have to do that. And there's like a line with it. Like we eat 3 times a day, so we have to think about food. That's normal. But if you're sitting there having anxiety about if you're going to be able to meet your macros, or if you're going to be able to find like the healthiest option at a restaurant, red flag, you know? And so just how much space, how much energy during the day are you spending on thinking about that? And is it actually improving your life, or is it hindering your life? And for me, that was the biggest like wake up call. Was I was like, this isn't normal. Like I'm not supposed to feel this way about food and exercise. And I didn't even realize it was possible to not feel that way.
Oh yeah, and it's difficult because you think at the time that like I'm looking out for my health. I'm like I'm doing something good for myself. Like why would that be a bad thing? But if it comes down to like missing social events or like hindering that was one of the biggest like red flags for me in my relationship with food. I had this big fight with my husband about a literal piece of pie, and at the end of the argument he was like, we've been through this before. And I was like, oh, this is not just a me problem anymore. It is like affecting the people around me. Like that I need to do something about this because this is not health. It's no longer healthy.
Yeah. 100%.
Do you think that if Mick hadn't kind of started her journey first, would it have taken, you think you'd eventually get there, or it just would have taken you longer? Or like, was that your biggest kind of wake
I
up?
think I would have gotten there because I think I'm really hard on my old self now. Like I always, when I think back to like who I was when I was in the fitness world, I don't give myself enough credit because I actually found some old like coaching emails and I cringed because I'm like, oh my God, I coached people to like lose weight. Like that's like the absolute opposite of what I believe in nowadays. But I actually was reading it and I was like, oh, like that nugget of truth was always there. I was always trying to urge people to be free with their food and to not be too intense and to have like love for themselves and not be so like crazy about it. I was always trying to encourage other people to do that. I wasn't doing that though. I was so hard on myself and I was crazy about it. And I was such a stickler with food and exercise, but I wanted other people to not be, because I think I knew deep down that that wasn't how you were supposed to live.
Well, and too, if fitness was like part of your job or was your whole job, then you're like, I have to be the best at it. I have to be like the example.
Mm-hmm.
Is fitness still, obviously your relationship with the fitness has evolved. Do you still, I know you were doing like switch it up, I think you were calling it. Are you still
Yeah.
doing the coaching?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have switched it up. It's like my online workout program. It's hosted on an app. I still have it. I keep up with it. There's new workouts every month for people. Fitness and movement is a huge part of my life, my personal life. It's not a huge part of my business besides like content. Like I like talking about it and I like doing stuff like this. But as far as like coaching or programs, it's not really a big part of my business anymore. And I honestly don't think it ever will be, just because that can lead you to being kind of obsessed with it, you know? And like, I like movement being separate from my business because it's something that is so important and like something that I cherish deeply. And I don't want it to be affected by business.
If you have any sort of like background with being like hyper focused on fitness or this all or nothing mentality, then it just, I feel like it slips so easily back into that. That's kind of where I feel like I'm at with my current relationship with fitness, is I like want to be more intentional about it, because for a long time I was like, I'm only gonna like, I know when I work out, it's for like the back. There's a tiny little voice in the back of my head that's like, maybe your body will change, and I don't want to have that feeling when I work out. So I'm gonna wait until I don't. And so then it was like very few and far between. That now I'm like, okay, I do really feel good afterwards. So I want to be a little bit more intentional about it. But there is that tiny little like voice that creeps up all the time. That's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, let's do this all the time. Well, if you
Yeah.
like keep going, and I'm just like, no, I want it to be fun.
I think you bring up a really good point. And honestly, it's kind of the whole entire basis of my ideas of like how I see movement now is when I first started my recovery journey with specifically movement, I kind of did the same thing. It's like you take this big step back and you're like, oh my gosh, I did not realize like how deep in this I was. I didn't realize how bad it was for me. And you almost, a lot of people go the opposite direction where they're like, you see movement as this bad thing, as this thing that is hurting people, and as this thing that is just like not good for you. But then as you move through it and you actually do your healing and you start to realize like, no, I think actually movement isn't the problem. Movement isn't the problem. It's diet culture. And it's how we've been taught to move our bodies. And it's how we've seen our parents move their bodies and talk about moving their bodies. And so once you kind of, it takes time to go through that though. You can't just have this realization and then the next day be like, okay, yep, I'm ready to have a good relationship with movement. Like I wish it was that easy, but it takes years, honestly, of figuring out what that is going to look like for you, how you actually like moving your body, and then actually applying it too and making mistakes. I think that's one of the biggest things is you're going to have to go through this and move your body maybe on a day when you've eaten food and you feel guilty about it, and you move your body because you feel guilty. And then you kind of realize after, you're like, you know what, that actually didn't feel good. I'm going to, maybe next time I have eaten a lot of food and I'm feeling guilty about it, maybe I'm going to try not moving my body, or I'm going to try moving my body in a different way. And we'll see how that works in my journey. And that's kind of how you start to develop your new relationship with movement, because you can figure out through learning and through making new mistakes, and you figure out what works for you. I think people make the mistake when they're healing their relationship with movement is like, they think there's this perfect way to do it and they're trying to achieve this ideal relationship with movement. No, this morning when I went to the gym, I was like, I don't really want to go to the gym today, but I knew I wanted to move my body. You know, I went to the gym anyway and it was a blah workout. And now I know tomorrow, if I wake up and I don't really want to move my body, maybe I'll try the Peloton instead. And it's learning through lived experience is going to be the best way to like build that new relationship.
And it sounds so weird when when you first take a step back from like maybe being a gym rat or like whatever you were into before and going like, first of all, like changing your language from like exercise and fitness and workout to movement, like game changer, because it kind of just takes that pressure off.
100%.
Also, like even just thinking about the concept of like, I want to move my body, like that sounds so weird to like a former gym goer of like, what do you mean? Like, you want to do a workout? Like, but
Yeah.
opening, like expanding your mind to realize that like working,
What that can include. Yeah. Cause like
yeah,
us,
moving
when
your
we
body can
thought
be,
like, I need to work out today, you had a very clear image of like maybe one or two things of what that could look like. For me, that was you can go lift or you can go do cardio at the gym. Those are your two options, or you can go for a run outside. That was like all my brain saw as working out. And so if I didn't feel like doing that, you would then do it anyway because you back then, like you had to, or you'd feel like crap. And then you end up feeling worse. Whereas now it's like when I say movement, I have a list of like 20 different ways of moving my body that on any given day, I can look at that list and be like, that sounds fun. And you feel accomplished after it.
yeah, one of my favorite things to do to try to figure out if I want to move my body, I'll like turn on a few pump up songs and like just dance around my kitchen and be like, was that fun or am I tired? Like, do I want to keep doing that? And sometimes that means like a dance workout, or it means like, oh, actually, it's really nice out. I'm going to go walk my dog, or I'm going to run with my dog, or I'm going to like, it
Mm-hmm.
just expands the idea of what a workout means. And it's so much more fun. It's so much more
And
fun.
allowing it to, even like you just said, do I want to walk with my dog or do I want to run with my dog? I don't think we allowed ourselves to have a fluidity of what that workout could look like. It was like if you said you were going to go on a run with your dog, you had to go on that run with your dog. And if you walked, you felt like a failure.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like with this new mindset, you realize I'm going to want to walk with my dog. If I feel like jogging, man, I'm going to jog for a little bit. And if I'm enjoying it, I'll keep jogging and I'll stop when I want to stop, and not having that guilt that can set in afterwards of feeling like you didn't do enough or feeling like you didn't do it good enough. When you have this new mindset, you realize, man, I moved my body today. I could have done nothing. Like I feel good regardless.
It's because you changed the goal from like, will this reach my goals? Will this reach my like aesthetic goals or whatever, to like, will that feel good? Will I like it afterwards? Will I like it while I'm doing it? And that is like so much different. And it just, yeah, it gets rid of the guilt because you're no longer like, oh, I didn't do that. You're not letting anybody down. You're not missing any like weight
Yeah.
loss goals. You're just moving your body because it feels good.
And you just said the big, if we talk about like, if someone is listening to this and they're like, I need like one tangible piece of advice, that is the biggest piece of advice you can give. You just said it, the word intention and goal. What is your intention? What is your goal? And if it's related to anything to do with aesthetics of how your body looks, that means that you are not moving your body out of kindness and love. And it's probably not a good idea. And learning how to decipher what your intention actually is. And that's where you have to get, and I don't know about you, but you got to get real honest with yourself. I've had some real deep and honest conversations with myself, because you could easily say like, yeah, like I want to feel good. But
Right.
deep down, you're like, I got a wedding I got to be in 2 months. So you got to be honest. And if there is still a part of you, this is a big conversation I now, 4 years in my healing journey, am starting to have with people who are kind of at that with me, is what if you can't get rid of that piece of you that is like, I want to lose some weight, or I want to like feel like I look better in my body, whatever that means for you. How can it coexist? How can you have a healthy relationship with movement and also understand that there can be that little voice in the back of your head, but it doesn't have to be the loudest one, and it can exist and you can still have a healthy relationship with movement, but you have to be fully aware that that piece of you is there, and you got to keep her in check, and you got to understand when she's maybe creeping up a little like closer and trying to be a little bit louder. And it's a difficult balance, and I know a lot of women and men deal with that in their healing journey, and it's really hard to understand and to know when you are being intentional in an authentic way, or if you're doing it because that voice is getting a little bit too loud.
You bring up a good point, because I wanted to ask about like, do you think that there is a way to balance like aesthetic? Do you think you can have, this is where I'm like, I don't really know how I feel about the answer to this question because
No,
like,
same. This is a very good, like, just, I don't have a perfect answer for this
yeah,
either. It'll be
do
good to
you
talk
think you
about it.
can have like aesthetic goals and a healthy relationship with fitness? Like my gut says no, because I I want to say that like if you have a healthy relationship with your body, then like you shouldn't care so much. Like that's kind of where I fall is like being the most toned, smallest, fittest, like snatched version of yourself doesn't need to be the end goal. Like that's not our
I
purpose,
think,
in my opinion.
yeah, no, I think you're right on the money. And I think there is a big difference between your goal being changing your body, like that being a part of your intention and a part of your goal. And then like that is different from you having insecurities about your body and letting that kind of creep into your movement journey. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
There is a difference between someone who is on their healing journey with movement and they understand that they shouldn't have these goals or these desires to lose weight, and maybe they don't on the surface. There's a difference between them still wanting to move their body to feel good and also just maybe having a bad body image day. It doesn't mean that that is your full goal. And that is what, like, there's a difference between being really obsessed and really like deep in it and having this goal that like it is a goal and you want to lose this weight by this date and you need to fit this dress by this date. That's different than having a little bit like having insecurities still and knowing that moving your body might make you feel a little bit better about them.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also want to say, too, quick caveat, as someone who has only ever lived in a straight size body, I don't feel like I can give the best response to this question because I've lived in a body that I've been insecure in. I've lived in a body that I felt big in, but I have not ever lived in a body that has been so foreign to me that I've had to experience like the feeling of like true desire to lose a large amount of weight, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I think like don't hear me wrong. If you're somebody who lives in a larger body and you feel the pressure from society and the world to lose weight, I am not faulting you for that.
It's so human.
Like it's so real. And if you want to pursue weight loss because you're tired of living in a larger body that is just deemed unacceptable by society, then I get like I cannot fault you for that.
I'm done with the shaming. I think that's what I'm really sick of. When we first started this like movement of body neutrality, body liberation, body positivity, there was so much shame around women specifically who still had that desire. And so a lot of women then kind of clammed up and they're like, well, I'm not going to talk about my desire to like change my body. It's natural. It is normal, but there's a way that you can have those feelings and you can still like create a healthy relationship with movement, I think. But the biggest thing that has to happen is you have to be able to heal that relationship with your body and understand like where that's coming from. And there's a lot more, I would say, like mental health healing that needs to happen with that. It's not just about movement and it's not just about that journey. There's gonna have to be like two journeys that are happening like congruently. And like we said at the beginning, I don't think either of us have a good answer for this. And it's kind of an ongoing thing that we're all like learning about as we're also seeing it in today's society with all of these like weight loss drugs. And we're seeing a lot of people who we've looked up to our entire lives who've lived in larger bodies now losing weight. And it's like it's uncomfortable when you are in the self-love space because you're like, well, aren't you supposed to not want to change your body? But I don't judge you and I don't want to fault you for the decisions that you make with your body. Cause at the end of the day, your body, your choice.
Yeah, that's the bottom line is people are always like, well, how do you feel about it? And I'm like, do whatever you want. Like I can't make that decision for you. And I think so much of healing your relationship with body, self-confidence, self-love, like is so personal that like I am not in their body and their brain. I don't know that they don't love their body in the process or, whether they do or not. Like that's not my decision to make. That's not my judgment call. And I think too, like if somebody going on a weight loss journey is triggering for you, in your current like stage, it's okay to not want to consume their content. And if
Mhm.
it isn't, and you like, and you're excited for them, whatever, go for it. But like, you're not wrong for like muting or unfollowing somebody who's on a weight loss journey if that's affecting your own personal journey.
1000%. And I think too, it's just understanding that you can do that and there doesn't have to be a projection. Like you can make decisions for yourself and in your own journey. And it doesn't mean that that person's a bad person. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person for unfollowing or for needing that boundary and that space. As you are going on this journey too, I mean, we touched on this a little bit, but the difference in your frame of mind when you first start your journey versus like 1 year out versus 2 years out, 3 years out, 4 years out, you get more comfortable with where you're at in your journey. And it also becomes a lot less a part of your life. Like I now 4 or 5 years in recovery, like I don't really think about this stuff that often because it's not an active, I don't have to. I've done the work where I can now live my life and it doesn't really affect me because I don't have anxiety about it. However, the person who just found out that they've been completely engrossed in diet culture for the past 5 years, it's going to feel triggering when you see someone order a salad. You're going to look at them and be like, are they okay? Like,
Right.
are they struggling with an eating disorder? No, they just felt like eating a salad that day. Like I remember having these very intense feelings towards people or like things that would happen because I thought that they weren't doing it right or they weren't healed enough. And as I've grown and as I've healed, I've realized that everybody really is just on their own journey and trying to figure it out. And you have to keep just trying to figure it out.
When I first kind of stepped away from diet culture and discovered this whole new world of like what's going on, it was this like, okay, well then I'm going to do this perfectly, right? I'm going to do recovery perfectly. I'm going to have a healthy relationship with exercise and food perfectly. And I don't think that's realistic or necessary. I think it's just something that I like have to live with and want to live with and want to like find a happy living medium.
Yeah. And I think it's something that you also have to realize you're never going to do perfectly, even 10, 15, 20 years down the road when you have so much knowledge about yourself and your journey, because also life happens and things change when we have babies. If we have babies, our bodies are going to change. That's going to be a journey in itself. Like you have to realize that all of it is going to be an up and down journey. And instead of your goal being this, like getting to a goal of perfection or a goal of even your goal of having like this calm, happy medium, that might happen, but then it might get thrown off because of a life event or because of just changing seasons. So I think it's more of like a constant awareness that you want to keep your relationship with these things healthy and in that you want them to be a part of your life, but you don't want them to take over your life. And you also don't want them to completely disappear. And in this season of life, how can we make that work?
Totally. I think it's about seasons. Like, okay, maybe I'm really into movement right now in this season. And if I'm not in the next, that's okay too. I think that's just life.
And not judging yourself for it too. Like when you said that, my first thought was in the summertime, I naturally move my body more because I live in Ohio and we have seasons. And in the summertime, I can rollerblade and I can play tennis and I can do all these things that I really love with movement. I know in the wintertime, my movement journey is going to look different. I'm more limited on what I can do. Thus, I'm going to move my body a little bit less. But I literally just made a post about this the other day. We aren't like, as humans, we're a part of nature. Nature slows in the wintertime. Animals go into hibernate, plants stop growing, and we also aren't meant to be go, go, go year round. And so I think just having the self-awareness about that and understanding that and knowing that it does apply to you too, like you're not immune from that, and almost embracing it too. Like I have been enjoying embracing this slower time, and almost romanticizing it, kind of making, because there's also, we have to talk about too, movement is one pillar of health, but like we also have so many other areas of our health that can help us become better humans and just feel better, like self-care and like all of our hobbies that we can do and our mental health. So in the wintertime, I really like to kind of shift it a little bit. And okay, if I don't feel like moving my body that on a certain day, how else can I serve myself? How else can I do something good for myself that isn't movement related? Maybe it's doing a puzzle or coloring or going on a date with my fiance. Like there's so many different things you can do that are under the pillar of self-care and of health that people don't realize are a part of that, and almost they don't count it. It's like they don't, that doesn't count, but it does.
I think that's important to note, because that just comes with the expanding from what a workout looks like to movement as a whole, to health as a whole. Like it just opens up your world and lets you enjoy more things. Yeah. It's no longer, oh no, I have less time to work out in the winter. It's like, oh, I'm inside more. I'm cozy. I want to stretch. I want to have soup. I want to like curl up with my cat. Like that's just, it can shift, and it's supposed to.
Yeah.
What's your current what would you say your current like season of movement is right now? What's your favorite kind of thing to do?
Yeah. So currently, like I said, it's actually right now I'm kind of like, I'm like, I can't go rollerblading. I can't play tennis. I can't do the things that bring me like the most joy with movement. However, I love my Peloton. I absolutely love spin. I got into spin in like 2020 during COVID. Actually, I went to Cycle Bar when I was living in Lexington. And there was something about, I'd never done like workout classes because, back in the day I was a personal trainer. I thought I knew best. Like, I'm not going to have someone else tell me
workout class.
Yeah. Like, but when I finally actually tried it and tried something new, it was the most fun, because I love music and I love just the community, and it really got me. I fell in love with cycling. So I got a Peloton when I moved because I wasn't gonna be able to do it in the classes anymore. And so in the wintertime, a lot of my movement looks like Peloton classes, but those are, I've never, this is actually funny. I don't think many people would assume this. I've never done longer than a 30-minute Peloton class. And I've had my bike for probably 3 years. And 30 minutes is like, okay, we're doing 30 minutes. So yeah, a lot of Peloton. I mean, I've been going to the gym. I don't love the gym I go to. And then a lot of stretching, a lot of like, it's in the evening time doing things that aren't exactly what you would think of as movement. But yeah, like stretching, and I got a sauna blanket, been loving that. Yeah, just finding like new, I always refer to it as my toolbox, like finding new things you can put into your toolbox so that when you open it up, you're feeling the urge, you want to move your body, you want to do something, like you can open up that toolbox and there is so many options in it that there's got to be something in there that kind of jumps off the screen at you that's going to be like, yep, that's what sounds good today.
I did a similar kind of thing, like a toolbox, a menu, whatever you want to call it. I put together this workout jar that has like a bunch of individual exercises written on them.
Yeah.
That I could like pull it out. I pull out a few, because usually like that's where I get stuck, because I'm like, I want to do something, but I don't know what I want to do. So I'll like pull a few out and be like, oh, that sounds fun, or that doesn't sound fun. And maybe I'll do a few lunges and be like, oh, that didn't feel good. I'm gonna do something different. And like that's fine too. It just adds ease to it. It takes the pressure off of like,
yeah,
I have to do a 30-minute Peloton ride. I have to do a 20-minute workout. Like, no, you don't. You could just do a little bit and it counts. Everything counts.
So I actually have a question for you.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to phrase it. So like, what is your relationship, or I guess opinion on things like, I guess the words like accountability, discipline, motivation? How do you feel like those can affect your relationship with movement? And do you feel like those words are like bad? Do you feel like they're good? Like, how, I don't know, how do those words play into your movement journey?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think they're all like, my first reaction is kind of like, I don't love it. I don't love it, because my brain automatically jumps to like, okay, all or nothing, gotta do it perfect. Diet starts Monday, workout plan starts Monday. Like that's what when I think of discipline and accountability, like that's what I think of. And I don't like that pressure that they give. I would like challenge someone to find a different word, maybe like, if we're not going to say, oh, I want to be more disciplined, I think intentional is a really great option. I'm going to work out 3 days a week, because just saying that I want to work out 3 days a week, if I don't do that, my brain's going to be like, you failed. Exactly. But if I say I want to like intentionally move my body a few days this week, It's like, see how that already feels better?
It
Like,
doesn't feel like this heavy thing on your chest. You're like, I can do that, you know?
it feels much more approachable. Accountability, I think, is helpful. I've been trying to reframe accountability
Mhm.
for
That's
some
the so
years.
that's the main word that my thing was about, but those other words fall into it. Accountability is such an interesting one because I was thinking about it the other day and I was like, I hate how fitness culture has made the word accountability seem like this intense thing that if you don't do it right, then like you're not accountable or you're letting yourself down. But I think accountability is, for me at least, it is one of the most important qualities for myself to have and for the people around me to have. Completely, fitness is like, let's say fitness is not even a part of this conversation. I'm talking about like, if I asked you to be somewhere, you're there. If I called you and I need like accountable in those situations, like accountable to your partner, accountable to your friends, accountable to yourself, and like doing your laundry and putting your dishes away and taking a shower. You have to find accountability in your life in so many areas. And being an accountable person is, it's hard. It's very, very hard to do. But I also think there is a really beautiful thing that happens when you do build a good relationship with accountability, that you build this like trust with yourself. You're like, if I, not the whole like, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it, but more so like, if something hard happens in your life and you know that it's going to be a season where you're going to have to maybe set some of your self-care things aside because you're going to need to be helping others or whatever the case may be, it's having that trust that like, you know, that you can get through a hard thing and you can show up for yourself, you can show up for others. And I don't know, yeah, I'm just like, I've been having this like whole debate in my head with like the word accountability, and I was like, why do I feel so weird about this word? And I realized it stems from fitness culture because it's, the word is literally plastered in gyms, like accountability, discipline, motivation, all of this stuff. Like they get clumped together. But I think that you can have a healthy relationship with these things when fitness isn't a part of it, you know?
Right, right. I think the word accountability, I also think of, I grew up in the church, like having an accountability partner is like someone who's gonna like make sure you like read your Bible all the time. So there's like that part of me that thinks of that too. And I think that adds to this connotation of accountability being like avoiding doing something wrong, or like making sure you do the good habit, or like making sure you don't do the bad habit. So it's like, make sure you don't skip the gym. Make sure
Like
you,
a lot of guilt and
yeah,
shame being attached to if you do not achieve that thing. Yeah, I didn't even think about that angle. And that's such a good angle on it too. So I think again, there has to be dichotomy. It's like you can work on being accountable and you can work on these things, but it doesn't have to be an all or nothing, you know?
the thing that I'm like looking for accountability for at the moment is eating enough during my day, because I, especially now that I like am my own boss, I work from, I'm like home alone most of the time. It's really easy for me to avoid eating. I'll put it on my Instagram story, especially. I'll give a reminder, and you do the same thing. Like, don't forget to eat today. I'm like, no, that's for me too.
It's for
Like,
me. Yeah. Yeah.
it's
It's
for
for me
me
and
every
for
time.
Mick. Mick and I have been doing our like 1:30, 2 p.m. Lunch FaceTimes because she also works from home too. So we'll like FaceTime each other around that time. And it's literally our reminder to each other to eat lunch. And so, and that's a great little tip. If you have someone in your life who is also struggling with this or what, like, you don't have to go through it alone. You can reach out to someone, you can include them in your journey, and you get to have a fun little lunch date.
What is a fitness trend or like health and wellness trend that you hope stays in 2023, that we leave in 2023?
It's actually kind of hard because I'm
I don't
not on
consume that much.
Fitfo like accounts anymore, you know? So like I don't really know. I do think I've seen an increase lately in women specifically wanting to grow their glutes. I don't know what it was about this past year, but like I saw like so many glute workouts and like grow the booty, like all that, just all that stuff, you know? I think I want to leave that in 2023 because I naturally just can't. I can't grow. I've tried, I've done all the hip thrusts. it's just going to stay where it's at, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think just in general, like targeting a very specific part of your body.
Like when it's a trend too, I saw one video, I think it was on TikTok, and she was talking about like ab exercises that you could do to give yourself more of an hourglass. I said, honey, what? That's not a thing. And that is false advertising.
Body shapes should not be a trend.
Exactly. Yeah. The idea of trends in general is something that's really bothering to me, is how quickly it happens, especially in the health space. Like there's a new product, whether it's like AG1, like athletic greens or whatever the product is, it's like that becomes the thing for like 2 weeks and everybody spends their money on it and try whatever. And then it's like, you've moved on and there's this new trendy thing that everybody wants to buy and has to have in order to be healthy or to achieve a certain look, or like having a viral hack for everything or a viral product for everything. It's like, it doesn't have to always be like that. You can just do what works for you. And also I've noticed too, less is so much more. Like in this journey that I'm in, like I don't really use many products. I don't really use many like specific things that are like, you have to have this in order to achieve this.
It's not that serious. You don't need the new viral thing. I saw somebody talk about this on TikTok a while ago that was like, if you really needed it, it wouldn't need to be marketed to you.
I just thought of it. I thought of it.
Oh yeah, tell me.
Cold plunging.
Oh yeah. Oh no, we need to
stop. No hate if you enjoy that, by all means. But it's like the hype behind it and people going out and buying these like troughs from Tractor Supply. I'm just like, again, if that's your thing, go for it, honey boo boo. But I've seen enough of it on social media.
Well, I want to end this episode on a positive note. I feel like we've said a lot of really good nuggets in this episode, but if you have one final nugget for people in this new year 2024, what's like one piece of advice you have for someone in their like current relationship with food and exercise?
Number one, your purpose in life is not to be the smallest version of yourself. And so if you are surrounding yourself with people or with things that make you feel like that is something you have to achieve in order to have worth, they or it should not be a part of your life, period. That is one. And then number two would be, you don't have to start a journey. You actually shouldn't start a journey. This should not be a journey, because if you look at your track record, I'm sure both of us are included in this narrative. You've had a life of starting, stopping, starting, stopping. You start a journey and then you have a off day on the weekend, or you start this and then you don't work out for one day, so you have to start over. It's a constant, like you're getting on the wagon and falling off and getting on the wagon again and falling off. And that feels so chaotic, and it can be solved with one simple thing. Don't start a journey. Don't start something that you feel like you have to get to a certain goal in order to finish it, because there shouldn't be a finishing point. This should just be a part of your life. So don't start a fitness journey. Start just like moving your body and see how it feels and kind of adapt from there.
Totally. Yeah, that's such a good one. If you want it to be a part of your life, then like don't put an end date on it. Just start having it be a part of your life in little ways.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be so intense. It doesn't have to be this like, okay, I'm starting on Monday and I'm going to go to the gym this many times this week and I'm going to eat this many calories and I'm going to do that. It doesn't have to be that. It literally, and I know it may feel like, well, if I don't do that, then it's not like real, or I'm not like doing the dang thing. You going outside and going on a walk for 10 minutes is you doing the dang thing. Like you taking 5 extra minutes to stretch before you go to bed is doing the dang thing. There are so many ways to help yourself feel better and feel like you're making improvements in your life, whether it's through movement or food or whatever. And it doesn't have to be super intense. So like if you're feeling this pressure of intensity around your movement or your like food journey, take a step back and ask yourself, how can I take the pressure off? How can I make this less of a structured thing that I'm doing and more of just like I'm adding these things into my day because I know it's going to make me feel better.
Totally.
Yeah. That's my last and final thing, I
I
promise.
love it. So good. Thanks so much for joining. I'm so happy to have you. I'm so happy we got to chat.
Yes, finally, finally. And hopefully it's not the last.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, thank you.
That was such a good call. I love talking to Gabby. I like still can't believe that we're like mutuals. You can find her. I wanted to share, I forgot to have her do this. So you can find her on Instagram and TikTok at Gabby Male. All of the places that she is on socials you can find in the show notes. And we probably will do another episode because that was such a great conversation. Her and I talked for another like 20 minutes after. So thanks for joining. Go follow Gabby, and I'll talk to you soon.